Great.
Let's start in Starkville because I know you're in Lexington this weekend, and T-Bob and I were talking. They may be the sneakiest, best game in the conference when you look at South Carolina and Kentucky. But how do you expect Mississippi State to bounce back after their showing last weekend? And for Florida, taking probably as high as they've been from a confidence standpoint back to Starkville with Dan Mullen.
Yeah, I think that'll be a little bit of false confidence, too. I don't know if we're really paying enough attention to just how bad Tennessee is right now. You turn the football over 6 times. You've got one offensive lineman that's worthy of being able to play in the SEC, and you got a defense that just doesn't have the personnel to be able to run what they want. Florida can feel good about that win. Florida can build a little bit of confidence off that win, but I don't think it makes them that much better of a football team. My biggest concern for Mississippi State this weekend is Nick Fitzgerald. When I watch him on film against Kentucky, he does not appear to be 100%. I have no information on that. That's not me reporting anything. By watching him, he does not appear to be as explosive as he did in the middle of last season or 2 seasons ago. So that could be a big problem as far as how you're drawing up plays and what you're asking him to do. But the reality is for Mississippi State, the intermediate passing game has got to go. And if Nick Fitzgerald can't complete a higher percent of those throws to empty the box and get defenses to play them a different way, they're going to get in trouble. Yes, they're more explosive on the perimeter. Yes, they're more explosive in the backfield. I still think the offensive line is a good group. The tackles really struggled against Kentucky, specifically Josh Allen, but they can't put themselves behind the chains and they can't get off schedule because it's just not an offense that's built to be able to do that. So I think that if Nick Fitzgerald can't hurt you with his legs, that really handcuffs that offense. But here's the reality with this game. I've played in one of these games before. I've played in this revenge game before. And Ole Miss came to Jordan-Hare Stadium the first year that Tommy Tuberville was our head football coach.
Wow.
The defense was calling our plays. The defense was calling our formations. They knew our checks. They knew everything that we were doing. And we had to completely bail on our game plan about 4 series through the game. We had to change our snap count in game. It was very distracting. It was disturbing. And then you get 2-3 series into the game, and you know what to expect from an SEC football game. But all of a sudden, that effort, that intensity is just at a different level for your opponent. That's what Mississippi State will be for Florida this weekend. What else does Dan Mullen have to sell his team on other than that this is just another SEC game? He's not going to get the Florida players excited and amped up because he used to be the coach there.
Yeah.
Every Mississippi State fan, every Mississippi State player is going to bring something extra to this game because it means that much more to them. And this isn't the head coach leaving. This is the head coach leaving and taking every single member of his staff. And, by the way, he's already dropped comments this week that he's mainly responsible for building what they have in Starkville, Mississippi from an atmosphere perspective. So I think it's going to be a ruthless, raucous environment. I think it's going to be the best environment that we've seen in the SEC this season. Now, that could actually go away later that night because LSU kicks off at 8:10, and we know what that thing's going to be like. But I think at that point in time, it's going to be the most raucous environment that the SEC has seen this year. Too much intensity, too much to play for. I think Mississippi State bounces back in a big way against Florida.
Be careful what you say, Cole. It might end up on the internet.
That's 100% getting cut out and put on Twitter. We're talking to Cole Cubelic at Cole Cubelic on Twitter. One of the best Twitter follows you will possibly find. He breaks down line play like no one else, and you can even see the clips on his Twitter. Go follow this man. Cole, so that's Mississippi State. Oh, by the way, did y'all end up beating Tuberville in that game?
No, we lost in overtime, actually. Ben Leard
wow.
broke his collarbone in that game. For some reason, Noel Mazzoni called a speed option with Ben Leard, who runs about a 7.7 40, and thought that was a good idea. He got clipped by the defensive end, broke his collarbone. Jeff Klein came in. We couldn't get it done. It was an early kick. It was a hot day. It was actually my birthday that we played. We lost that game. So, yeah, I'll never forget that one. But it was a tough spot. And then I think just the matchup, too. You think about the Florida offensive line. They haven't played great ball. Still a really good defensive line Mississippi State brings to the table. A good secondary. Felipe Franks has not been consistent. He found a little bit last week. But to me, there's a lot of reasons to like Mississippi State in this game set.
Yeah, and Cole, maybe the most surprising part about last week's Mississippi State-Kentucky game was how the Kentucky offensive line kind of pushed around and had so much success on the ground against that very good Mississippi State D-line. So let's look to Lexington, South Carolina at Kentucky. Come Sunday, are we going to consider Big Blue, the Wildcats, the second-best team in the SEC East?
It's very possible. If they get this one, I don't know how you couldn't think that, T-Bob. And you go to Florida and you get that game, and I know it's not your traditional Florida football team, but mentally and emotionally, we know what was on the line there with that 31-game losing streak. You get Mississippi State, a team that was ranked in the top 20 at home, and now you'll get a South Carolina team, the team that most people expected to be the challenger to Georgia in the SEC East. So they win this game. I think you have to look at them as the second-best team in the SEC East, and they're going to have a realistic chance to be able to play Georgia for the SEC East in a couple of weeks. When you look at their schedule, it really does lighten up. It's not that difficult. They've got a road game at A&M next week, but that game wouldn't even really matter because if you could go beat Georgia, you'd have the head-to-head, and then they would be able to obviously represent the East in Atlanta. So There's a lot on the line, and I think if they win this game, you absolutely have to look at Kentucky as the number 2 team in the SEC East.
Cole, talk about this Auburn team a little, because last week they win 31-3 over Arkansas, but then you look at the box score, kind of shocking, man. What did Auburn gain, like 220 yards or something? I think they actually got outgained, and maybe that speaks to how bad Arkansas is. But what is the current state of this Auburn football program?
It's fair, but isn't it amazing what the Alabama effect here and the Nick Saban effect and what it's done? Auburn wins by 31 and fans are miserable. And all I'm hearing is how LSU struggled with Louisiana Tech and they're not what they thought we were. And all these teams are winning their games and fans are just complaining and completely miserable. It's unbelievable what's happened. And I think it starts with Alabama and what they've done. And the expectation is that everybody wants their program to be that, and it's just not. But the other reality is Auburn does have real problems. Auburn's offensive line is not very physical. They started Nick Brahms at center last week. He brings a little more oomph to that position. I think he can be a guy that they build around. But here's what I believe about the Auburn football team moving forward. You go into this game against Southern Miss this weekend, and if you cannot find a downhill run game, a consistent downhill run game between the tackles or off tackle that you've lived off for a long time in this offense, you have to take a really close look in the mirror and ask yourself, what do we need to do and who do we need to be moving forward? Because we might not be able to be the team initially on offense as far as what we build our offense around that we've been for the past 5 or 6 years. And with Jarrett Stidham and a talented group of receivers, that might be Auburn's best option moving forward, is to sort of get away from trying to be something that they're not. I feel like they've been banging their head against the wall of trying to be a downhill run team first because that's what Gus Malzahn wants to be. That it utilizes play action. That helps get some of the quarterback reads going. But if they can't be that this year, then they really do have to look and consider, okay, what's our other option as to what we can be first on offense, and then maybe try to open up a little bit of a run game between the tackles down the road. The defense played lights out against Arkansas. They brought a little bit more pressure. I think they showed teams that if they take that LSU blueprint from a few weeks ago, that they're going to keep running backs and tight ends in the backfield for extra protection, that they're willing to blitz, and they have guys that can bring extra pressure. And Kevin Steele wanted to put that on film, so that's now out there. But offensively, they've got trouble, and there's problems, and it's got to get better. You've heard Malzahn say it multiple times this week. The offense must get better, and if they don't, you look at the schedule ahead for Auburn, it's brutal. They need to figure things out quickly.
Talking to Cole Cubelic here. Follow him at Cole Cubelic on Twitter, SEC Network analyst. Also hosts 3-Man Front, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every weekday on WJOX Radio. So, Cole, let's look then to Death Valley, Saturday night. We're gonna get a little freaky, man. 8:15 kickoff. That's a lot of time to drink. That's a lot of time to eat before this game gets underway. How do you see this Ole Miss LSU matchup playing out?
I think this is the worst matchup for the Ole Miss offense that they'll face all season. Because I think LSU has the best secondary in the SEC, and we've seen how Dave Aranda's been able to mix and match numbers. I go back to some of the things that he did against Auburn, and you look at what he's going to be able to do. I mean, Ole Miss is not bringing a very powerful offensive line. They're not bringing a group up front that's going to be able to move people off the ball. And I think an active group of sideline-to-sideline linebackers led by Devin White can probably allow him to play fewer numbers in the box and maybe take away a run game that has gotten going a little bit this year with Scotty Phillips. I'll give Ole Miss credit. They have been more balanced this year than I expected them to be. And even Jordan Te'amo is a guy that can break you down with his legs. But for me, this just comes down to guys who can cover on the back end. LSU has more of those guys. Now, DK Metcalf's going to get his. A.J. Brown's going to get his. That's just the way it is when you're dealing with freak athletes like they are. But I think LSU has enough to be able to neutralize what they want to do for 4 quarters of football. And offensively, this is a great chance for LSU to really get some momentum going because this is one of the worst defenses in the SEC.
Yeah.
And LSU's not going to have to be great on offense to move the ball, to move the chains, and put up points. I think you'll see them slow this game plan down. I think you'll see Steve Ensminger play a lot of ground and pound, and utilize Joe Burrow's legs again, kind of like they did in Auburn, call a quarterback counter, quarterback power every now and then, utilize him on bootlegs. Tell them, hey, if it's there, just go ahead and run it. Let's keep the clock rolling. Let's move the chains. Let's keep that offense off the field. And Joe Burrow has been great at protecting the football this entire season. That, to me, is the key in this game. Burrow protects the ball. That means Ole Miss protects the clock, and that means LSU protects the clock and keeps the Ole Miss offense off the field. And I just don't see this being nearly as problematic for LSU as some people do. It's not I wonder why some people see it. I mean, you add on to that kicking off after 8 p.m. in Tiger Stadium. It could be a nasty place to play. So good luck, Ole Miss.
LSU Ole Miss, 8:15 kickoff. That'll be on ESPN. Cole's up in Lexington, Kentucky, as they'll have Kentucky hosting South Carolina on the SEC network. That'll be a 6:30 Central kickoff on the network. Cole will be working that game and will be back with us next Friday, dropping knowledge. As always, man, thanks.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Talk to you next week.
Yep, there he is. Cole Cubelic checking in with us on the from the SEC Network from Lexington, Kentucky this morning, as he'll have the Wildcats and the Gamecocks tomorrow from Kroger Field at 6:30 Central. All right, OTB rolling on.